George Lucas was just quoted, "Artificial intelligence means it's easier for us to make movies. There's nothing you can do about it. That's progress. It's the future." Why have no other filmmakers come out and just said it like this?
Because they don't have $1 billion in their bank account, and he does.
When photography happened, it didn't replace painting. It just adds to the offerings.
AI is backward looking, so it's just pulling and rinsing and repeating stuff that already exists.
The market gets flooded with all these AI things, yes, but the second somebody pops up who's real and is really fun to watch, now the market goes like, oh, that person's value just quadrupled because less people are doing that.
The craft of it all is a lot harder than I think most people think. To make a 80 or 90-minute piece out of 15 seconds at a time that all fits together is unproven.
AI is infiltrating the film production space at an extremely rapid rate. George Lucas says that there's nothing you can do about it, that this is the future. Today on the Indie Playbook, we're going to talk about AI. Is it the end of movies as we know it? Lately, Hollywood's been in a state of crisis. Film production has gone way down, and work has dried up for myself and for my colleagues.
My wife and I did the thing that any logical person would do in that situation.
I put my house on the line and I launched my own production company to make movies called Flashback Pictures. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Playbook, episode 4. Today, we are going to talk about the two letters that everybody in the film business and the broader business world is talking about. AI. Is it the end of movies as we know them? I'm Daniel Cotroneo, founder and CEO of Flashback Pictures, filling in for Grace Portes, who is working on a small little program, you might know it, called the World Cup, producing the World Cup halftime show for the championship. So she's off in New Jersey, and we wish her the best. We'll be tuning in next week for the big championship game. I am joined today by Dominic Russo, the co-creator of Workaholics and our veteran creative guy here at Flashback Pictures. And our special guest today, Blane Dydasco, director, writer extraordinaire of the animated feature River. Today, we're going to talk about George Lucas was just quoted, "Artificial intelligence means it's easier for us to make movies. There's nothing you can do about it. That's progress. It's the future."
Damn. Mixing it up.
Boom.
Coming out with a mic drop moment. But yeah, what do we think of this? Is this it? Is there nothing we can do about it? Is this progress? Is this the future?
The big question is, will it erase all jobs in Hollywood? Versus, is it a cool new tool that everyone will be using? I think, right? That's the real question. Will people be involved in the making of the movies if the AI is the primary tool? And I think, yes, it's still really hard and you still need a lot of people to do it. But these tools will allow you to do more things for less money and faster. So George Lucas is correct, is what I'm saying.
You agree with George Lucas. He's seen this before.
I agree. Hot take.
Why have no other filmmakers come out and just said it like this?
Because they don't have $1 billion in their bank account, and he does. He's old, he's rich, and he does not need to work anymore. So he can say inflammatory things. When you're young and you are worried about being canceled from Hollywood, right? Something like that. He's got no risk.
And who are the people that are going to get canceled with AI?
From like a communistic standpoint, like, you're a communist, you cannot work in this town kind of thing? Or do you mean canceled like, we no longer need your job?
Yeah, because I think that's the fear that people have, right? It's simply about, they feel like this is going to replace X number of people in the industry. While I do think that that is true, is it going to create just as many jobs or more jobs, in other avenues, or enable filmmakers to make things that they wouldn't otherwise have made?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, Blane knows, I think, firsthand how much work goes into using the AI tools to make a thing. And it's not just that easy, right?
Yeah, and I think there's one, when we talk about what's going to happen to jobs and what's going to happen to artists, technicians, I think there's one more or the larger group of technicians that would work on a single project now get to break off and are working on more projects. In other words, more projects start to exist because of the opportunity and the lower barrier to entry. So you might have the same amount of people working, but now are working on multiple and more projects. I think everybody would benefit from that.
And Blane, you're working on a project that you say is a human first AI assisted workflow. So can you tell us what that means?
Basically, yeah, here we are, I think, as sort of filmmakers in the industry in general, for those that are interested in using at all, then the question becomes how best to use the technology. I'm with, artists first, in that personally would be more interested in human made movies. At the same time, I grew up watching Terminator 2, Star Wars, and Jurassic Park. And so while I, got inspired by the movie itself, we're also watching technical evolution through films, and so those are the movies that inspired me. It starts with the story, so it starts and ends with the story, and so for us, it means that we got talented writers, talented human writers, experienced professional writers that wrote the film, and like a traditional screenplay, wrote it over and over again until we got it right and iterated on it. So that's where it started. We have humans involved at every level, from cinematography, the way our images are coming through, the images that we're selecting and prompting. Human actors. One of the biggest things I'm excited about this picture, all the way on to the editor. Editor is going to be the last one to touch the picture, and we have a human professional editor also. So that's our goal. Our goal is to have human influence at every level, but take advantage of the tool to make something that might not be makeable, period, but otherwise make it with the means that we have.
But the question then is, I think the fear is, if it gets good enough to get rid of every person, will you do that to make more money? Like if you're a studio. And I think the studios would say, yeah, whatever increases the profit revenue.
Right.
I guess we're years off from that being the case today, but will it be the case in 10 years? And I guess time will tell. I don't know. If you could just say, write me a great movie about a prison break, and it could just spit out a fully formed movie.
I think what we're seeing right now is that AI is most impacting right away the lowest barrier to entry points. And I was talking just a few minutes ago to Blane about the vertical microdrama space, which is a genre that has exploded over the past year. And the quality of a lot of the projects that you see out there is fairly low budget. A lot of these look like student films. And, production wise, these are easy to create. You're seeing now almost overnight, really within the past several weeks, there's been a massive influx of purely AI generated microdramas because the barrier to entry is so low. This is all based on analytics. It's the same concept that's repeated over and over again. AI is backward looking, so it's just pulling and rinsing and repeating stuff that already exists. So I think this gives an opportunity to the next generation, the next voices and artists that are able to raise that barrier of entry. One of our mantras here at Flashback is like, if you can do it practically, do it practically. Utilize the AI tools where you wouldn't have been able to do something. But if you can do it practically, do it practically.
Flashback Golden Nugget.
It does look better practically.
The audience will decide. So when we talk about we don't know yet, you're right, Dom, that we don't know yet. I think now is the time where, the experimentation, the production is going to happen for those that are going to try. But in the end, right, the audience is going to decide. So like the microdramas, they're working because there's an audience for it and there's a market for it. And that is separate from cinema. So yeah, the expectations are different with that medium. And for films, I do believe there'll be some attempts, and over the next few years, we'll find out what the audience likes and what they'll be accepting.
And Blane, can you tell us a little bit about just the impetus for River and how you decided on this format as the best way to tell the story?
It all starts with curiosity, right? So we see the technology evolving, and then we become curious on how far it'll go. It's a harder decision when you have a lot of resources, when you've got everything on hand and everything accessible, a big budget, a lot of resources. It becomes a more difficult decision on what to use, what not to use. But I think there's a world of filmmakers, indie filmmakers and projects that wouldn't or won't exist without this technology. And so that's where it started, to say that, number one, I see opportunities opening as far as this is going to lower barrier to entry. More people are going to tell stories. And so just a filmmaker wanting to make a movie, but also the curiosity as in, let's find out, right? Because, I won't stake the claim yet that AI performances will pass and will replace human performances. But what can it do and how close can it get? And can it become a marketable piece? As a curiosity first, and then the drive to tell a story.
And you were really part of the first generation of AI filmmakers and creators. And can you talk a little bit about what it was like in those early stages and then how you evolved into making a full-on 2D animated feature?
I'd say the real OGs are going to say they started to play around with image generation and video generation like 2021 and 2022. Yeah, I noticed it and really got active in 2024 when things started to solidify to a point where images start to become believable, when we start to realize that if this trend continues, then we'll get to a point where it's reasonable to think that AI generation could be part of making movies and making television. That's how it started. Technology-wise, it was then barely readable, not sellable, to now, just 2 years later, where we currently have now AI-generated imagery in shows that we watch, in primetime shows, in movies, in big productions. The leap and the advancement has been swift.
I see like our generation of filmmaker as people who learned the process the old way. Let's just say, I mean, it's always evolving, but the way we came up
Yep.
was very hands-on. It was on set. It's wrapping cables. It's lifting heavy things. It's dealing with very expensive cameras and gear and a million people and practical all the way. And so that's your educational background, right? Is like the traditional film school, at least like traditional in the last 30 years. And now you have this new set of tools that comes out via AI. And so for me, that background is learning to write a script, like the old-fashioned way. Sitting there, typing it out, going through a million drafts, being like, this isn't very good, make it better. This isn't very good, make it better. So through those processes, you get better at the thing. Same with being on set, same with lighting, same with all these skills that you're learning. Now, our generation's an interesting group because we have both a background in the practical way of learning how to make films, and then we're given this new set of tools, which is really exciting, which it can very quickly minimize the amount of time that goes into that workload. And so our group, I think the fact that we have an education in the old way, but now have the ability to use these AI tools, it sets us up really nicely for making a movie like River that's influenced by the old way, but using these new tools. So that begs a lot of questions. Like, if you're just coming out of film school now, do you even learn how to light? Like, maybe
Right.
not, right? Or 10 years from now, that kid coming out of film school, do they know how to wrap cables or light or what a set is like or how to talk to people on set or crews and all these things? Or for a writer, it's like, do they learn how to be a writer's assistant, write scripts, fail,
Right.
get better, and then eventually succeed? So I almost think we have this leg up right now because we have this background in practical filmmaking. And now we're given this gift of AI tools to go use that practical knowledge and make something really interesting. So
Yeah, and how long is that opportunity going to last too, right? Because, right now we do have that opportunity, but probably the filmmakers that are utilizing just the new tools are going to figure out a whole new type of content that people will connect with, and maybe traditional movies as we know them are just simply not going to be as popular as they used to be.
or they'll look different and feel different, and the way they get made are different. And
I think one way this goes is not that AI films replace traditional films or take over or even infiltrate it by sort of percentage per movie, but AI may become its own medium. Should a lot like photography versus painting. When photography happened, it didn't replace painting. Same, we're making images. It became its own medium. I think that could happen with AI, or it'll just be a preference and a taste thing. People will go to see movies that have no CGI in it, and they exist, and they will always exist. On the other hand, CGI is commonplace in almost every movie. I think at some point the hype will die down, and it will exist. The exciting part is if it exists as its own channel and becomes its own thing. But I think the more likely scenario is that it just adds to the offerings, so that viewers can pick and choose how much AI they want to see in their film or not.
And I think CG is a great point that you bring up too. And that's the area that we're, at least on our end personally, we're utilizing it as independent filmmakers in the live action process because we don't have the budgets for a VFX team. So when we did Pizza Guys versus Vampires, we shot that in 5 days. We had 95% of it was shot practically, but 5% of it, we knew we wanted to do certain things. We wanted to make a high-speed car chase. We wanted to make vampires fly. We wanted some cool blood effects and a light coming out of the lead vampire's hand when he's putting a spell on somebody. This just started as a conversation between you and I, Blane, which is like, hey, man, we're making this thing, we have to turn it around by Halloween. We're either not going to do this effect at all, or is this something you think you can do? And I remember you were like, yeah, let me give it a crack. And so, it turned out great for our purposes, but I just wonder, are we going to see a huge penetration of AI, in the VFX? Are we going to continue to see that?
Yeah, I think so. And back to the George Lucas quote, I mean, another reason why his quote's going to hold more weight is he's traveled that road through the CG evolution, and so he was the guy, one of the guys that said, "Look, now we can make images on the computer out of nothing. What do we do with this?" He has that sort of unique perspective to say, "I've seen this before. It's going to work. How and where." Is still yet to be determined, but it's not going to go away the same way that he figured, look, as soon as we can produce imagery and produce pixels and polygons on the computer, it's happening. And therefore, Star Wars, Jurassic Park. So I think special effects is probably, like you said, probably that area where least friction as far as, any concerns around AI. I think all that is minimal when it comes to live action special effects. And that's one of the areas where it's already being implemented. And I think that's one of the most straightforward use cases for AI.
To the Star Wars point, like a lot of people don't think any of the new Star Wars is good, and the original practical model making stop motion Star Wars was the good stuff. Now, that doesn't make the movie good or bad on its own. There's other factors that went into making the new movies, the Disney version of Star Wars. There's still that argument you made that the practical, old school, hands-on approach to the old Lucasfilm somehow had more magic in it than the new way. And maybe it's because they toiled for hundreds of hours figuring it out and making sure the characters made sense versus being able to just do it really quickly and shove in some monster that didn't really have much thought behind it. Are the old Star Wars better than the new Star Wars? Minus the AI, a lot of people would say definitely.
I think, there's the charm factor for sure.
There's nostalgia. Yeah.
I think there probably will continue to be a generation that has no frame of reference for the originals and will only know Mandalorian or these new series that come out as well. We feel like the onus is on us as millennials to kind of pass on, the tradition of these films. But how far will that continue? I don't know.
And I would say like the best Star Wars have the best stories and the best characters versus having any of it to do with the graphics and the animation. Like it's probably the script that wasn't quite captivating enough, or the story that you were telling versus anything else, So ultimately, did the story get your attention, which is a writer, which will become a computer.
Yeah, I know one of the things I'm excited about as a filmmaker is thinking about in the early stages of conceptualizing an idea or developing an idea, you can integrate those AI, use cases right off the bat. I know we had talked about this a little bit before, but there's I've always wanted to do a Prohibition era boxing film. And, I worked on Mad Men for 3 seasons. We did that show almost entirely on stages in Los Angeles that were built as the New York office set. And, one day of every 2 episodes, we would be, doing maybe a driving scene, or we would be on location in a local bar or something like that. But it was so rare. So, I mean, it just gets quite expensive from a production standpoint, replicating a time period. So, I was thinking about for this film, let's say 70-80% of it is in interiors, boxing sequences, stadiums, all that we can shoot practically. But that 20% of exterior material, we just lean 100% into AI, go for a stylized, almost Sin City type of look to it. And that's just built into the fabric of the film from the beginning.
Period stuff, again, is going to be a great, straightforward use case for AI. Expensive to do otherwise, even outside of film. Like, what a neat use case to be able to sort of step into that time frame, and just a different way of looking at all of that.
Cinderella Man is, maybe your comp, but that was probably a $60 million or more movie.
Right.
And it was really good, but it was really good because it was a great story. And, he wins in the end. Spoiler alert. He gets him, But they told a great story and they made a good movie. Would it be just as good in the same story if the backgrounds were AI? If you couldn't tell the difference.
At a certain point, if the story's good enough, you'll just get lost in it and it won't matter if it's AI or real.
Yeah, like Toy Story when it came out was the first animated, I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the early animated Pixar movies that people were like, holy shit, this movie made me cry, and it's animation. And I didn't think animation could do that.
Or I didn't think that computer-generated animation could do that. Or
Yeah, right.
You know, I heard a great story about that as well that Tom Hanks was telling. Voice records that Tom Hanks did were for a completely different script than what ended up being the Toy Story that we now know. But Woody was a much more aggressive, less likable character. They recorded Tom Hanks's entire, you know, the entirety of his script for in this previous draft. They went and edited that and were like, no, this is the wrong direction. They went back to the drawing board, rewrote and re-recorded. And so maybe it's less about the technology and more about they started with a very, very crafted script. You know, of course, the technology supported that.
But the benefit or the allowance to be able to go back and change something that's not right is what was Pixar's early magic. Like, they didn't release a movie until it was perfect to their standards. And if it was a live action shoot, you wouldn't probably go back. And if your budget was limited, you also might reconsider going back and changing anything. So if the cost is low enough to go back and make a scene the best way you can make it using some of these tools, would you do it? And I think the answer is probably yes. And so you get the Toy Story out of them willing to go back and, you know, adjust until it's perfect. And then that kicks them off on this brand run that goes for, 30 plus years or whatever they're on. But they might have gotten away from that. I don't know. Pixar now is owned by multiple corporations, probably. So ultimately it came back to some guy going, no, this isn't the right movie. Let's make it the right movie. And then they went and changed it until it was the right movie. And so having that human in the loop, being able to decide which direction we want to go tonally, storytelling wise, is what ultimately gives us the product that everyone loves. So you still need people. That's what I'm saying. Choice, tone. When you got those cowboy boots, Daniel, and I was like, you could never pull these off, without me, you'd be wearing cowboy boots. You know what I mean? So you still need people to be like, nah, dog, that's not it. That's a made up example, but you understand the metaphor.
Just thinking about our Huntsville and Nashville trip wearing cowboy boots.
See? You are an Oakland guy. You can never wear cowboy boots. I don't think so. Well, we'll see. You could probably do a model shoot with AI to see if they look good on you without having.
That's good. That's a good point. Yeah.
But then have a human look at it.
Your wife still needs to be like, no, Daniel, no.
All right. Well, it remains to be seen what happens in the AI filmmaking world of the future. But let's roll right into some rapid fire questions. What do we think? Is AI the end of the world or the best thing for indie film?
Neither.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. It's going to add to it, but it won't be the end all, or it won't be the beginning or the end. It's part of the story, part of the evolution.
Can I ask you a question, Blane? Because I think people ask me a lot about writing TV shows or something. Like, I want to make a TV show. I'm like, great, write the script. And then you never hear from them again. Because sitting down and writing a really good script takes time. It's hard. It's mostly failure. It's a craft. You get better over time. So I think with the AI film conversation, the assumption is that you just go in and type a blurb and it spits out a finished product. But my question to you is, how hard is it to use these tools? How much time and effort and labor goes into making sure it's good versus just anybody can go into ChatGPT and have them spit out an image. But what's that? Like, we're talking about a story and sequences and lights, and it's got all match. And it's like, I hear you talk about it. I'm like, oh, this is as hard as editing or writing or any other facet of this industry. It's a real skill set. It's not just something that anybody can just do. I mean, you can get good at it, but how hard is it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you nailed it. Where it is a misconception that AI is, I think the worst assumption is that it's automatic, because it's certainly not. We can create images easily. Creating compelling images or compelling stories has always been hard, and it gets harder with an unproven tool. So yeah, you're right. I think it's going to keep evolving, but at the moment, certainly not automatic. Especially when you have a standard like you're talking about. The vision becomes the bottleneck and the valuable thing. Otherwise, you certainly can you can just bang out minutes of video and you'll get that. But a coherent story, matching backgrounds and matching concepts is tricky at the moment. It's getting easier, and it will. The hard part right now is the doing and the making, like you're talking about. So the craft of it all is a lot harder than I think most people think, to make a cohesive piece out of, let's call it right now, 15 seconds at a time, to make a 80 or 90-minute piece that all fits together, is unproven. We're out to prove that and to prove what we can do. And we'll see a couple of film attempts alongside ours. But yeah, it's difficult at the moment. It might not always be. I mean, I think the one vision is, like you talked about, Dom, is the one shot. Like, can we one prompt a whole script? Can we one prompt a whole movie? We can't yet, but we, at some point, the tech will be able to. At that point in time, then it leaves the humans to decide where then do we input our influence? Where is the human checkpoints along the process? And I think groups and teams will be able to decide for themselves. But right now, as the technology stands right now, to hold a standard of what's acceptable for a cinematic story, it's definitely not as easy, I think, as most people think.
I think at the end of the day, the audience is going to be the one to decide. I mean, that's the test that we're seeing in the microdrama space play out in real time, which is now the market has been penetrated with 100% AI generated microdramas.
Mhm.
Are the audiences going to watch those? If so, then AI is here to stay, right? But if the audiences are like, no, I don't want to see this, I want to connect with real people on screen, then, the market will probably die down on it, I would guess. But, that process is going to be slower as it penetrates into, like you said, if we'll get to a point at some point where you can single prompt an entire project. And at that point, the world is going to be flooded with these single prompt generated projects. And if people are watching them, they'll continue. And if not, how do you stand out as an artist at that point with your piece of work?
I don't know. You guys ever watch like Tiny Desk, that NPR music show, and like musicians come in and they just play their songs in a room. It's like one of my favorite things to watch. Like, God damn, these people are so talented. You got like 6 people. That guy's playing the mandolin. That guy's on the drums. This girl can sing like Jesus. Jesus was a good singer. But these are all skills I do not possess, so I'm very impressed by them. I'm like, wow, this is really fun to watch. And it's just a camera and boom. I think if you're somebody who loves to perform and can do it in a way that people want to watch, you're always going to have an actor, a comedian, a Will Ferrell, somebody who's like, that dude's funny. I like watching that dude or that girl, whatever. So Daniel, to your point of like, the market gets flooded with all these AI things. Yes. But the second somebody pops up who's real and is really fun to watch, now the market goes like, oh, that person's value just quadrupled because less people are doing that. So you can almost see like these swings will happen. And then maybe an AI person will pop up that's like funnier than Will Ferrell. I doubt it, but maybe. But still, is it better to watch a real person doing something that's amazing and spectacular than, a graphic doing it? So yeah, I think the audience is going to decide. I think we like watching people do things that are impressive. Woodworking, singing, acting, whatever it is, we still love watching people as people.
Sports is another sort of good example of what you're talking about, Dom. We see like not only AI, but robotics entering all kinds of arenas. But yeah, will robotics, take over athletes in sports? I don't think so, because it's about human accomplishment and human ability. So yeah, I think that's more visual, but I agree that the same thing on screen. Yeah, I think we're all looking for a human display for sure. But I think both markets will exist. We're already seeing it with the microdramas, where both markets will exist separately. The other good example is 3D. When 3D started, it kind of felt like, like we have to make a choice. Do I like 3D movies? Will I ever watch a 2D movie again? But it turns out after initial cycle that it has its place. It didn't go away and it didn't take over. And we don't have to choose, not indefinitely.
I take my kids to watch 3D and they don't wear the glasses. They're like, I don't think this is very cool. I'm like, it's cost $22.
Why is this movie blurry?
They're like, why is the movie blurry? They're like, where's a regular movie? Like, they don't seem that interested in it as like a offering. They're like, I'd rather watch a movie and eat popcorn. Like that, the popcorn is, being there is better than like the 3D of it all. So yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know if there's one thing that's going to like change. I'm sure there's a guy out there who loves 3D Bob, but it's not most people. I don't think.
And there's already a group, it's mostly, the community of call it artists or creators that are using the technology, but that same group is now the audience. So that same group and their network and their audience are the first ones that are currently watching and, at least, a lot of times on social media where the short form is more digestible, they're now regularly consuming fully AI shorts, series, whatever, whatever's coming out now. But for a very small subset right now, it's becoming normalized. So can't say nobody's watching this stuff.
Do you think, the early adopters of the audience, being that they're the people that also maybe are working in the space, like they probably have a specific understanding of the difficulty that goes into it, so they can almost appreciate it on another level that a regular person who doesn't know how to do it can't do it. So maybe like EDM music or something or DJing or something, people that don't get it are like, what is this? But the people who kind of understand the space really well are like, wow, that's really impressive because they did X, Y, and Z. That's cool. I like it. So yeah, you're probably going to have these little cultures, bubbles come out of it where there's these fans, and then, it'll they'll overlap with these other genres too. But I think you're right, Blaine. It's going to be its own genre of thing that people want to watch or not because they like it or don't, just like country music and EDM and, we're attracted in different directions.
Yeah, Dom's definitely more of a Guns N' Roses than a Dead Mouse guy. We've had this conversation before.
I mean, Axl's, come on, that voice, those cornrows, AI can't do that. We know that.
All right, we've got a cage match. In one corner, AI is the future, George Lucas. On the other side, Guillermo del Toro, the biggest hater of AI ever. Fight to the death. Who wins?
Lucas got the force.
I think Guillermo has some darkness, dude. That guy.
Yeah, he does.
That guy will he'll bite.
He's got that unknown factor.
Did you guys watch that Disney ILM behind the scenes series? It was really good. But Lucas.
Light and Magic, right?
Light and Magic. Thank you. Lucas seemed like he could be a real prick back in the day,
Yeah, he had some fire, right? Yeah.
He's also no slouch. You could probably get probably talk down to you pretty hard and make you feel bad.
There's clips of him doing like 47 takes on the original Star Wars film, and Harrison Ford's like trying to make him laugh, and he doesn't budge. He's like, "Go do it again, just do it again." And I think he's very focused.
So if we're talking about in their prime, then it's a different story.
And Lucas's head seems huge. I have a big head myself, so I can spot other people with giant heads, and it's hard to headlock a head that size. Guillermo, his head's no slouch either. But I'd pay $10 to watch it. See, two people doing two things. Would I watch the AI version of that fight? Less interested. I'll say less interested.
All right. We got to set this up. Well, we'll close out with the way we always do with a set story, but today we have the pleasure of being joined by a set vet, Mr. Blane Dydasco. So Blane, what do you got for us?
Shoot, I'll do one like a hot and cold on this topic of how movies are made, how it might change. But we were on Iron Man 2. It was at the time, a second unit. That's the action unit. We were off the 405 freeway here in California, and we shut it down. And that was one of the coolest things at the time. I'm like a 25-year-old lighting technician among probably a crew of 50 others or so. But yeah, I remember being kind of at that point in time thinking that this is cool as shit, and I could do this forever. For a 25-year-old, it was pretty awesome. So I do remember that as sort of a high point. And then cut to the low point. Being an electrician or lighting technician on a movie means you're climbing, you're hanging lights, you're running cable. The less fun, less glamorous day when you take everything out. And so we're cleaning up our gear. And of course, it's pouring ass rain. This rain feels like it came from, it doesn't belong here in California. It's heavier, it's thicker on this particular day. All the cool kids are gone. We're just left with the riggers, and these are the electricians, the last ones out. And so now we got civilians walking by us, and they're just walking by and they're watching this kid in the rain pulling cable. And within an hour, I want to say, I got two people that walked by me that said almost the same thing and said, "Oh, that sucks to be you." And so And so they were right in that moment. So there's my high and low. I thought, man, this gets as good as, look at me, I'm just watching all this action happen. And it's awesome to be a part of this big show. But then also coming to a point where, God, there's got to be an easier way to do this. There you have it, the fun and not so fun.
You were out, fast forward 10 years.
Yeah.
And now you're back in.
Yeah, you're right. So that was enough to make me think about what else, and then maybe take a breather while the industry kind of does its thing for a little bit. And so yeah, I did take a break. It gave me a fresh perspective, and fast forward a couple of years, see the industry evolve, reconnected with some old filmmaking friends, lights the fire, and here we are again.
Well, thank you so much, Dom, Blane. Folks, look out for the animated feature River coming to you soon, later this summer. We'll see you next time.